Hi world, my name is Scarlett and welcome to my neck of the woods. I live somewhere in rural western Pennsylvania, and no, I'm not from here. I have lived an extraordinary life, and for a really long time I've been wanting to share that story with the world. I basically came to this corner when the pandemic had just started, and I was getting out of a really toxic and abusive marriage. I needed safety. So I came out here because my best friend from New York City has been living here for about 15 years. So I knew I would have safety. I knew I would have security. She runs the best witch shop in this entire country. I've worked in witch shops from coast to coast, and hers is hands down the best. So I knew I was going to get to find a place to heal, a place where I could just be on my own for a while and catch some room to breathe. I think when we're challenged with going through something like that, it takes its toll on levels that you need to allow yourself to unravel before you can put yourself back together. I hear a woodpecker. Okay, so the sun is really strong today. We're gonna walk a little bit together. What do you say? I think I just heard a horse. Or something. There's animals out here. So I grew up in New York City, which is an upbringing I wouldn't trade for the world. What an education, what exposure to all of the cultures and art and music, and just the pulse of that city it's so insane and it's so intense, but it's just a part of me forever. I went to art school for as long as I could remember, and I actually went to the Fame School for high school. So if any of you saw the movie Fame about the performing arts school, that was my high school. After that, I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. So my life was just engrossed in art. My father was an artist. He was a single working dad raising me on his own. My mom had passed away when I was 10 years old, and he was a creative soul. He was a self-taught musician. He came here from Turkey in the 1960s, immersed himself in American culture, but very much stayed close to his roots, playing Turkish music, Turkish folk music. He played Turkish weddings. He played at Turkish nightclubs. I basically grew up in Turkish nightclubs ever since I was a wee one. I grew up watching belly dancers and seeing all the glitz and the glamour of the nightlife. You wouldn't think it was a wholesome place for a child to grow up in, but it was an education unto itself. Dare I say, he's rolling in his grave somewhere because he passed away quite a while ago, but dare I say that that was my introduction to wanting to be on a stage. Years later, around the time that I turned 30, I started performing burlesque. So I went from a lifetime of painting and drawing and, composing two-dimensional things in terms of my creative outlet, to dancing on a stage and choreographing numbers and designing costumes and creating props and, writing out these little vignettes and scenarios. I got to perform in some amazing shows. I worked with a lot of incredible performers and producers and photographers. I have all the awesome photographic evidence to prove it. Actually, I just got my hands on a DVR. Hopefully soon I'm going to be extracting some old performance footage I'm excited to share with you guys that I haven't seen for, maybe 15 years. So that'll be a trip. As with any small niche community, sometimes it gets a little too close for comfort with the drama. I didn't like where it was going. I didn't like the energies that were being exchanged between people. I didn't like a lot of the behaviors that were being coaxed out, even of me. It just stopped bringing out the best in me. And creatively, it was starting to bore me. It just started feeling too formulaic. okay, we all know what's gonna happen at the end. I'm gonna come out and, pasties and a G-string. Whoop-de-doo. How many more different ways can I figure out how to get half naked and twirl tassels? Maybe get enough for a cocktail and a cab ride home. Anyway, after burlesque, I went back to my roots and I started drawing again. Of course, I was trying to think of a way that I could monetize off of my art. How can I, be the most bohemian, artistic, free spirit? I tried dancing on a stage. That wasn't lucrative enough. What can I do with my art and maybe actually pay the bills? I found my way into tattooing. I started getting tattooed by somebody that I felt his style was reminiscent of the way I approach drawing. My art and even my subsequent tattoos were never like, old school traditional Sailor Jerry. They were more illustrative, rendered, a lot of shading, a lot of color, fine lines, things like that. So I wore this guy down. Every tattoo appointment I had with him, I would bring in a sketchbook with 10 or 15 new pages. He couldn't turn me away from an apprenticeship at that point. So that's what happened. Tattooing lasted me for a good decade. And I have to say, I wouldn't have been nearly as successful with my tattooing if I didn't have all of that social networking under my belt from the burlesque world. That gave me plenty of skin to advertise on, and that was a blast. Until it wasn't. Again, anytime you get involved in a niche community of artists, especially, it taps into the wrong side of the ego for the wrong people. Don't get me wrong, I've made some amazing friends who I'm still connected to today, but some people, whoo, scary shit. Tattooing carried me though from New York to LA. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, 14 years. I come from a long line of serial monogamy, okay? And I said, I'm done with New York. I've been wanting to explore other places. I've always felt that I was destined to live somewhere else. There is a universe outside of New York City, even though a lot of New York City don't want to believe it and they're trapped in the web. I took a leap and I moved to LA by myself. It was something that was supposed to happen actually just before my tattooing began with my boyfriend at the time. And then he joined a band and he had every reason to stay, and I had saved up all this money to start the California Fund. And that's actually how I got to afford my first tattoos. My first major tattoos that got me to meet my teacher. So it all works out, right? Everything works out. Everything happens for a reason. I went out to LA and I got a job at a tattoo shop. I got a cute little 1920s bungalow in Glendale. That was incredible. I was in California for almost 6 years and I had a total love affair with it. I loved California so much. Okay, the sun is too damn bright today and I'm getting out of here because there's too many people on the trail. You ever have one of those days where you just set out to have a nice long adventure and then it just gets cut short because no,